Bonjour, everybody, and good morning and welcome to France Week on Adventures with Sarah. This week we are celebrating all things French. I'm a little bit lamenting the fact that I'm not in Paris right now, as I normally am at this time of year. So we're going to kick off our week of discussing France with the French girl who used to be in Seattle, who is now back in Paris, Veronique Savoye. Bonjour, Veronique.
Bonjour. Bonjour, Sarah. Bonjour, everyone.
So I actually met Veronique some years ago, actually, because she reached out to me about working for Rick Steves, which now she does work for Rick Steves. And you just started guiding last year, but of course you did work for Rick Steves. Now you don't, just like all of us.
I do and I don't.
So tell me about all the different things that you do.
So like you, like many of our friends, I lost all my tour guiding assignments from Rick and also the tours I was planning to lead around Paris in the spring. So I had to figure out a way of paying the bills. So what I did is I did not reinvent the wheel. What I did is I used the wonderful community I've had in social media for almost 10 years now through my blog, French Girl in Seattle. And I started teaching French again. I used to do that in Seattle at some point in time. So I teach online French classes for adult students. And I also created a membership site through a worldwide community, which is called Patreon, patreon.com. And so I have wonderful people in my community who support my endeavors and really pay my salary, because my new job is to report on France. I used to do it as a hobby every day on Facebook, Instagram, on the blog when I had time to write. And now I do it for everyone, still in social media. And then I give extra content, live events, videos, stories, etc. in Paris and as I travel to my wonderful patrons, or club members, as I like to call them. So this is how I make a living right now. And it's working out pretty well. I'm enjoying it.
Wow. Yeah. I've had a few people suggest that I do that for Adventures with Sarah too. So you're inspiring me to look into that. So when people join, it's like a subscription thing and they can support you at different levels.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. So exactly it's like a membership thing. So you have different tiers and the creator will create the tiers based on, different price points and different types of rewards. And then your followers will come and check out the different tiers and see which one works for them. They're very affordable. They start at $5 a month, the price of a cup of coffee. And then most people will pick the $10 a month one, which is the price of a glass of wine, and not even a glass of wine where I used to live in Woodinville, Washington. And then you have I have about 4 tiers. And then in return for that, we do a lot of fun things. Yesterday, I took everybody on a walk through downtown Paris. And then I switched on to our private Facebook group and took my patrons through a wonderful park called Le Square du Temple in the Upper Marais in the 3rd arrondissement. And I sat down under a beautiful gazebo built in 1900, and they got to see the park, the children playing as we were chatting back and forth and talking about travel and France. And so these are some of the wonderful things you can do for your club members and patrons.
Wow, that's really exciting. And what an interesting way to pivot being a tour guide, because I think what a lot of us have been struggling with as guides is that we miss our jobs and we miss teaching and we miss the interaction. So basically you're kind of carrying on anyway.
Exactly. I'm still teaching. I'm still a tour guide. If you go to my YouTube channel, France with Vero, you can see guided tours that I do offline. So I will walk through a neighborhood and, with commentary and take them on a walk. And that's being a tour guide, that's being a teacher. And I can do a live streamed walk also somewhere. And I'm still teaching, I'm still guiding. So I miss being on the road with a group, which was really fun. And I did that for Rick last year. But I'm still with my guys. We were saying yesterday, as I travel solo through France this summer, I keep saying I travel solo this year, but it's not really true, because wherever I go, and that's been the case since I started my blog in 2010, wherever I go, they're always on my shoulder, because I share what I see with them always, in a good way, right? Not like your parents. So they're over my shoulder. They see what I see. And I've done that. I did this before as a hobby, and now I do it for everyone, for the community and my club members, basically.
Oh, you're on. Oh, there you go. We lost your video feed. Veronique? Uh-oh, I think we lost her. Her internet connection dropped. Well, that's okay. So we'll get her back online in just a second. So Veronique is coming to us live from Paris. And so she and I have just been kind of talking before we started about what a challenge it is to try and support ourselves during this time as tour guides. And as you guys know, I am starting to do some interesting things working with my other colleagues so that we can all bring you traveling with us and sitting on our shoulders, as she said. And I hope that you guys know that I also feel like I'm doing that also with you. So I'm gonna see what happened to Vero here. Where did you go? She told me earlier, just before we started, that she lives in an apartment that is about the size of my kitchen. And that's pretty typical in Paris. People live in apartments that are about 200 square feet. So she said hers is 235 square feet, which is pretty little. So I'm gonna hang on for another second. And if we can't get her hooked up, I'll go offline and see if I can give her a call and get her back online. It is possible the Parisian internet is not working. Oh, here she's back. Okay, are you back?
Can you hear me?
I can. Uh-oh, what happened?
You will never guess what happened. I put my phone on do not disturb, but somebody we both know just called me. It's Julie Sonvo, our friend, tour guide Julie. So I clicked on decline, and I was trying to get back in. My apologies.
Oh, that's okay. Well, say hello to Julie for me.
Yeah, I will later when I catch up with her. So sorry about that.
So I was just mentioning to everybody how you live in an apartment that is 235 square feet.
265
Oh,
square
65
feet.
square feet.
It's very large. It's very big.
So is that typical in Paris that people live in such small spaces?
Not that small always, but pretty small. So if you are willing to live in Paris, you have to be okay accepting that kind of living space. I am in one of the former, we call them chambres de bonne, you know, those servants' quarters right under the rooftop. So I am at the top of a building right under the rooftop, and the rooftop is made of zinc. And so today it's 85 degrees outside, and I can definitely feel it. So you don't see it, but I have a fan blowing a lot of hot air on me right now.
Oh, yikes. I think Seattle and Paris are so funny because they do have some interesting connections. And one of them is that it doesn't get hot very often, but when it does, you can't do anything. I've got fans on in my house because once it hits 80 degrees here, it's the same. Yeah. Our buildings don't have any way to breathe. So
what worries me even more is at the end of the week, they're saying 40 Celsius. That's close to 100 degrees. And I know that when that happens, based on last year's experience, I need to leave the place. Last year, I had to check myself into a hotel, an air-conditioned hotel in my area. But I will stay refreshed because it's aperitif time in Paris, and I'm drinking rosé. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, no, I don't mind at all. I've got coffee, but I do have actually a glass of rosé from last night sitting out on the table. So.
Oh, good. Well, salty, huh?
Oh, hang on. I'll grab it. Here we go.
Excellent, excellent. Be brave, Sarah. Be bold. It's the morning, but it doesn't matter.
There we go.
There we go.
Santé. Rosé. Santé.
Santé. Chin chin.
Why not?
It does help. It does help.
All the rules are off after being in quarantine for what, 4 months now? So yeah.
Oh yeah. We were in strict quarantine for 2 months here, and that was enough. It was very strict, the kind of quarantine where you step outside with a permission slip and all that fun stuff. So picture being outside for up to an hour a day with a permission slip for exercise, walking your dog, whatnot. And then being in here, 265 square feet by yourself, because I didn't see anybody for 2 whole months. 23 hours a day.
Oh,
so if I had not launched this business, my Patreon program, my French courses, I honestly do not know what would have happened. I'm very serious. It kept me focused. It kept me, like you said yesterday, out of trouble. Yeah. And I was just focused on launching this new business. And I talked to people. I had a live event every Saturday, Apéro with Vero on Instagram. So I had this connection with people. I could see them on the screen, but I didn't see a live person for 2 months.
Wow, that's harsh. And, I think the people in the US, everybody laments, oh, I don't want to have to wear a mask. I don't want to have to do this or that. But I don't think anybody understands how how strict they were in Europe and how people really stuck to
Yeah.
it.
And it worked, and most people did stick to it. We have a lot of whining going on now because people, the cases are spiking up again. The government is threatening to crank down again in some areas in France and close some parks and close some bars at night. Young people are being blamed a lot right now. They're feeling invincible and not really following social distancing rules or anything. So I don't know what's going to happen. The situation evolves almost every day, every week. The government announces new things. So we'll see. I mean, nobody really knows what will happen in the next 2 months.
Yeah, well, I've heard that in different parts of France, our friends in the south of France were telling me that that people are not doing social distancing. They're not necessarily wearing their masks, and they're just sort of going back to life as usual. So
yeah, they did that almost as soon as the bars and restaurants reopened, which took a couple weeks after the end of the confinement. And immediately people went back into, the way things were. They were just craving for, I guess, for normalcy. And so it's understandable. But as I'm traveling through France this month, I can tell you I'm a little scared and a little horrified. So I walk around everywhere with my mask on, indoors and out. I'm one of the few people in the streets in touristy areas with a mask on with a few seniors. I guess I'm a senior too.
wow,
So,
really?
yeah,
That's shocking.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So I stay away from crowds. When I'm filming a video for my club members, when I'm doing a live stream, I choose the streets carefully. If I see a group of people and the street is about this big, which let's face it, happens in Europe a lot. Medieval city centers are this big. I will just step aside and just go another route. I don't feel comfortable in crowds. I really don't, because people are not wearing masks. So I try to be careful.
Yeah, well, same here. I mean, even when we go out for a walk, the kids and I bring our masks with us. And I think that it would be easy actually in France to make masks a thing if they could only make the masks more fashionable.
but they are.
Oh,
I
are
have
they?
some really, oh yeah, I have some really shishi masks. In fact, in a lot of boutiques, it's really fun. In a lot of boutiques, you see them in the shop windows now. So they'll be selling, I don't know, purses or clothes. And then you'll see a head like a mannequin. And there'll be a really cute mask. So I look at the price, and if it's $5 or less, I'll buy it. If it's $20, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need that mask. But I have a collection. I have 5 or 6. But when I travel, though, I find the paper, the surgical masks are easier because I don't have a washer with me. Yeah. So I buy this box and I travel with that, and then I change it very regularly. At home, though, I have some really shishi masks.
Oh, well,
I do.
This week is I'm going to design some masks for myself. I want to do something a little bit more attractive than the surgical ones that I have been wearing.
Right, and you're so creative. You can do anything. So sure, you can make some pretty masks. So that would be great. Yeah.
That's going to be one of the upcoming projects, adventures around here.
Here's an idea for Patreon. Here's an idea. Join Patreon, get a free mask made by Sarah.
I love it.
Welcome gift. A welcome gift.
A welcome gift. Actually, that's a fantastic idea. So maybe I will.
Sarah, and marketing wise, it could say Adventures with Sarah right here in the front. Adventures with Sarah. That would be good.
Man, you and I should have teamed up much earlier, Vero. You're on top of it. You've got all the ideas.
I like business. I like business and I like marketing. It's one of my big passions in life.
Yeah, actually, this is the weirdest thing for me is that I got my scholarship to university in marketing, and it just, which I've never studied marketing in college. I studied architecture, but it's all coming back, it's like, oh yeah, that I do know how to do this stuff.
Marketing is very interesting. Some people really hate it, but I really am whether I worked in the corporate world or ran my own business, which I did in the US and now in France, I was always interested. My favorite part of launching a business was always the launch part, was always creating the concept, creating the services or the products. Once that was done, I was like, but it was the part where I launched everything, created everything. And I'm still like that. I really enjoy that.
So going back a little bit, because there's a lot of people who are joining us today who don't know you. There's a lot of your fans watching for sure, but a lot of people who don't know you. So those of you who out there follow me, but not Vero, tell us a little bit about how you started your blog and why you were in Seattle and all that. What is your backstory?
Well, actually, it's funny. You had our friend Virginie Moret on on a similar chat a few weeks ago, and I watched Virginie talking to you, and I could not believe how many similarities there are between her story and my story. And I had heard that at Rick Steves Europe, because Steve Smith, when he helped me get in, had said, "You remind me of Virginie," and somebody else said that to me at Rick Steves. She studied English to become an English teacher in France. She ended up moving to the United States with her hubby, which I did as well. She ended up teaching French in the United States for a significant number of years. I did too, when I had my own business. Then she came back to Europe, to France, and became a tour guide. And I eventually did that as well. So it's funny. So my life was like this. I was always interested in the United States. I always wanted to spend time here and live here. I have a master's degree in English, and I majored in American studies. So I was very familiar with the culture. I studied in Atlanta, Georgia for a year in college, and eventually got married. And my husband was transferred to Seattle. And that's how I ended up in Seattle in 1996. And I spent 23 years in Seattle. Our son was born there. He's now a college student in California. He's 20 years old. His name is Alec.
Wonderful. So what brought you back to France then?
What brought me back to France was first a divorce a few years ago, and the fact that I really missed France and Europe. And that started about 5 or 6 years ago. I waited for my son to go to college. My parents are also getting older, and they're not well, and they live in Paris. So I wanted to be closer to them, because I could see that in the next few years, it would become very complicated for me to be in Seattle when they needed me. So I decided to relocate probably about 5 years ago, and it took me a few years to make that happen. But in March of 2019, I resigned from my job and moved back. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity with Rick, because I was in my 50s and started a brand new personal and professional life. I had nothing. The only lifeline was the job with Rick. And it was a very positive, great experience for me. I made friends. I learned a lot. I traveled around my homeland at long last, which was so wonderful. I rediscovered my country with a group with me. So my enthusiasm, I think, was contagious, because I would walk around Chenonceau, the grounds or the village, and say, let's go see the village. It's not just the chateau. This is a typical village. You see the church, you see the city hall, you see the post office. And they were like, yeah. So I think, I was just so happy to be back and reconnected with my country. So I owe that to Rick Steves Europe, because it was thanks to them that I could do that.
Yeah, well, and I absolutely would say my extraordinary life, 20 years with Rick, I would say I've had the most extraordinary life of anybody that I've met.
Yeah, so you have, because we have a lot for them.
Yeah, we have a lot to be thankful for. And Rick has definitely given us all very delightful and interesting lives that are without compare. So yeah, we're lucky that way. And hopefully we'll be lucky again.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But no, I mean, you relocate, you start a new life, and you start making all these friends. And through a lot of the tour guides, especially, I have tour guides who started with me at Rick's, the class of 2019, who live in Europe. So I have a few good friends in the UK as well. But I really got close to some of the tour guides in France. I'm going to see some of them this summer. Arnaud, who is in the Paris area, Linda, who's in Brittany, Virginie, of course, and then there's Mary and William in Burgundy. We'll probably see Claire in the Basque Country. So it's like it gave me this family, this new set of friends, this new tribe. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, well, and that's always been the thing that I've been most grateful for from the Rick Steves family, is that we really is a family. I talk to people that I've met at Rick Steves every single day of the week, multiple times of the day usually. So
yeah, you have connections everywhere by now. You've been with them for so long. You've traveled so much. You know everybody, right?
Yeah, it's brought me basically my closest people in my life are all people I met through Rick Steves. So yeah.
Yeah, it's your tribe. It's your tribe. You understand each other. You have the same experiences. It's a wonderful feeling. So I really hope, and it's nice that even through this, we're staying connected. Like I don't know as many of the tour guides as you do, obviously, but the ones I do know are here. And they were there for me when I was on the road, because they sent me on the road. I was on the road my first season training as an apprentice. I was on the road for more than 6 months. I think I did 10 tours and I ended up leading 3 of them at the end, but they would check on me. So the ones I had toured with, that was so great because there's a real team spirit, because they would text me and find out when I was on my own how I was doing. There was a lot of support, and I really, really appreciated that.
So now that our Rick Steve stuff is on hold, are you planning to do any of your own tours through your own?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will eventually. I'm not ready this year, obviously, but I have a corporate background in operations that is really coming in handy for a lot of things I do on my own. And I think I would like to lead my own tours maybe in the next couple of years. And I would probably focus on areas where I know American visitors don't really go to. And my patrons recently asked me this on a live call we have each month. And I said I would really like to start with the Southwest, where I'm from. So that would be Toulouse and the area around Toulouse, the old province of Gascony, which comes with a lot of great stories and great food and beautiful scenery. So in the next 2 years, I'd like to do that, my own, friends tours with small groups. I think small groups are easier right now and will be for a while. And then Paris, of course, as soon as I can, I'll resume leading tours in Paris, in the Paris area, I should say.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. So I'm dying to get back to Paris myself. So,
well, when you are, give me a call.
Absolutely. Well, you never know. You
Yeah.
may see me this summer. We'll have to see how things go. So just talking generally about Paris, I know I have my favorite things that I like to show people when I'm in Paris, but what are your favorite things that you like to show people that are absolutely not famous? Things most people at home would have never heard of. What are the things you would do?
It's funny you should say that, because my specialty is a little bit, I hope I don't sound too pretentious. My specialty is a little bit to tell the untold stories, or to tell people off the beaten path. So if some of Friends with Vero viewers or readers are watching right now, they probably know that. I would probably focus on areas where people have been to Paris so many times and they love Paris, and they stay downtown and they love it and they soak it in. And then they do field trips, or day trips. But even the day trips are always a little bit the same. Versailles, Chantilly, Fontainebleau, Giverny, etc. So I think when I start my tours again, and I'll be working on that in the fall, I'm going to show them the wonderful areas in the outskirts of Paris. And I guarantee you, no tourists go there. I live in a beautiful area east of Paris, very close. I can hop on the metro and be in downtown Paris in 5 or 10 minutes. But there's another river in Paris. In fact, there are several, but one of them is called La Marne, Marne. And La Marne has beautiful riverbanks and dreamy neighborhoods. No tourists ever go there. And a lot of the social life of working classes in the 19th century happened there, in those restaurants by the water called guinguettes, where they would dance on Sundays and drink cheap wine and have fun. And you have beautiful houses. So I think my tours in Paris are not going to be focused on downtown Paris. I can do these too. I can do the Marais, Montmartre, historical Paris. I've done that. But I think I will try and focus on the areas where people who've come to Paris a lot, are ready for something different. And that's where I'll try to take them, basically.
Yeah, and I have found that is true of Paris, that probably the most enjoyable part of it, for me at least, is not going to the Louvre and the Orsay, but just walking and getting out into the outskirts, going out. I love the area. I don't know if you live near Vincennes, but I love that area out there.
Actually, that's where I live.
Oh, I love that area. Actually, yeah. That area, we stayed there years ago because it was an easy hotel just for one of the itineraries. And I really fell in love with that neighborhood because it has such a sweet kind of flavor to it.
Yeah, Vincennes is like a smaller version of Versailles, the city of Versailles I'm talking about. Yeah. Vincennes is like it's elegant, it's fun, there are beautiful shops. It's almost like being in La Provence. La Provence meaning everything outside Paris. And being from Toulouse originally, and having lived all over France with my family, I know that the good stuff can be outside Paris. And so when you go to a place like Vincennes, which is my neighborhood, you really get to see Paris in a totally different light. People will come to see the beautiful medieval chateau. They may come to see the beautiful Parc Floral, which is part of the botanical parks, gardens of Paris. But we also have Le Bois de Vincennes, which is the largest green space in Paris. It's twice and a half the size of Central Park. And you can just have fun around here and spend a whole day here. We have great food, great pastry shops, shopping. You can spend a whole day in Vincennes in this area without missing downtown Paris. And people don't always know that because everybody focuses on the same neighborhoods. So I think my tours will definitely focus on that type of experience.
Well, I've always suggested when people ask me where to stay in Paris, I suggest looking out there because you're at the end of the line 1, which is like the straight shot into Paris. And it's so fast. It's what, 15 to 20 minutes to the Louvre from
there. And it's safe. It's the safest line in Paris because it's the most protected. That's also where all the pickpockets are because they're not stupid.
Yeah.
Right now they're being very, one of the perks of the health crisis, we have a few. One of them is that the pickpockets have been extremely discreet or non-existent. Like I look around when I'm on the metro to see if I spot them because I'm usually good at spotting them. I don't know. I think they went on vacation.
Well, maybe they don't want to get coronavirus either. They don't want to get too close.
Yeah, I don't see them. So it's it's like, now we don't have to watch our backs all the time. I'm sure a few of them are still around, like they are in most big cities in the world. But I mean, it's a nice break. I mean, if you've led tours, I know you did last year in Paris, where you have to watch over your shoulder, or in Barcelona, or in Italy. It's not fun. So right now we're enjoying this respite, this break from our pickpocketing friends.
So I have to wonder if the lack of pickpockets is due to the lack of tourists, specifically American tourists. So
I think it's connected.
Yeah, I imagine, which then leads me to a question that I have been thinking about all weekend, actually. And what is the atmosphere? How is it right now in Paris without tourists? Because you don't have Americans, you don't have Chinese tourists, you don't have third world tourists.
Okay, so that's a great question. If you follow some social media accounts, they would have you believe Paris is empty and only the happy locals are enjoying Paris right now with not a tourist in sight. This is completely inaccurate. Right now, Paris is quiet, not just because Americans or Chinese tourists aren't here, but it's quiet because it's the time of year when it's supposed to be quiet. Between July 15th and August 15th, a lot of Parisians leave anyway. So yes, we are missing groups of tourists now, but I guarantee you, based on the neighborhoods, you will see tourists. You will see European tourists. You will see French tourists. I mean, the Canal Saint-Martin, have you been by that canal? That's really popular at night. It's literally hopping a little too much. The authorities are really concerned, not much social distancing. The Seine River banks packed. So depending on where you go, you will see crowds or no crowds. The arrondissement where we have some of the Rick Steves hotels, the beautiful 7th arrondissement by the Eiffel Tower, a lot of the businesses there relied on tourism. And right now they're suffering because a lot of the tourists haven't been back. But in other neighborhoods, you will see crowds. It is lively as usual, with the exception of Parisians being on vacation right now. So you really have to take it with a grain of salt. Depending on the time of the day, the neighborhood, things can be very different. And that's, if you just look at Instagram and photos, you could be misled into believing Paris is empty. It was like that for about 2 weeks when the deconfinement started. July 1st, July 3rd, they opened the borders, things started to change. And there are lines in popular areas again. Not the huge lines we've seen, not the fight your way through the crowd type of lines, but lines. And they are there in all the touristy areas in France, in Brittany, in southern France, at the beaches, we have crowds.
Well, and I thought that seemed like that had to be a myth because Paris has millions of people who live there every day anyway. So just the actual inhabitants of Paris are enough to fill the streets. But now that Europeans can't leave Europe, where are they going on vacation?
What I'm wondering is what we're seeing now. I was in Brittany and it was busy. What we're seeing now is probably what a busy touristic summer should probably look like if we didn't have to suffer from mass tourism. We see crowds, but they are manageable crowds, the way they were years and years ago, before all these big numbers, in a city like Paris. I'm sure you can go to the Louvre and line up for a little while and see the Mona Lisa in much better circumstances right now. So I'm wondering, is this what it should be like? Is this what it used to be like? But we've forgotten. We've been so used to seeing all these places like Paris swamped with millions of people, neck to neck, back to back, that now it's like, oh, it's empty. Well, no, it's not empty. There are more than 2 million people living in downtown Paris, and we have the suburbs as well, and they come in, and a lot of people are not going away this summer. They're trying to save money. So yes, there's still people in Paris. See, so there's always this.
Yeah, and I think that's the question a lot of people in all over Europe that I talk to are asking themselves, now that tourism has taken a pause, do we really want to go back to where we were? And I think it's a double-edged sword, because the locals, of course, you think they're going to say, absolutely, we don't want tourism anymore. We don't want mass tourism. It's terrible. But there's a lot of money to be made there. So there's a lot of people who, us too, we're tour guides. We don't want tourism to go away. So no. I think the difficult question going forward is, what can we learn from this? And how can we change what we do going forward? And I don't know, what is your perspective on that?
One thing I really appreciate is that in Paris now, you have to book before going into almost every museum. I really like that. And that's how a museum controls how many people are going to be inside at a certain point in time. They didn't used to do that. You could buy last minute tickets and just join the crowds. I think those reservations are a great way to go. And they should keep that at every single museum, unless, it's a really small one, but they should keep that at every single major museum in Europe, or enforce it if they haven't yet. That's a nice way of controlling, how many people will be in there, so everybody can have a good experience. And yes, people who plan ahead will come out on top, and the procrastinators or disorganized ones or fly by the seat of your pants ones might be impacted, but they'll learn. People are very adaptable.
I would say my only comment on that is that we've seen with the Eiffel Tower what a slippery slope that is, though, because companies like Fat Tire just buy all the tickets. And so individual people who would like to make a reservation, they have no chance, because these businesses do it. And I know that there's a bunch of Asian tour operators that have bought all the reservations for the Louvre, for example. So
they need to be strict about that. They need to control who buys what, and I'm sure they're thinking about it. Of course, we want tourists to come back, all of them, especially American tourists who are always, I don't know that Americans realize, especially right now. I spend a lot of time in social media because I have a community like you, so I share information there. And I read. I'm a voracious reader of people's comments on different types of sites. And I have a feeling that a lot of Americans feel unloved right now and feel unwanted right now and are suffering from it, and they don't understand. Well, I want to reassure them that wherever I go in France as a traveler or as a tour guide, I've only had the best feedback about American tourists. There are other countries I won't name where I didn't get the same feedback, but everybody wants Americans to come back. They are nice people. Overall, they're very well behaved, and they are big spenders. Let's be clear. Yes. Everybody wants Americans back, and they will come back. I know they will. So it needs to work out. They need to figure out a way. We can't have those sites swamped the way they were before. I've seen pictures of Italy, of Venice last summer. I was just horrified. I just couldn't believe how many people were packed in those streets. And there must be a way to do this better.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the real conversation going forward. But I'm really glad to hear you say exactly what I have understood too, which is that I think Americans do feel a little rejected by the world community. And, it's not my fault that people who live in Florida don't want to wear their masks. And you feel like you take a little bit of the stigma of that, of being unwanted because some people are misbehaving. And also, I just think even before COVID, I think Americans I don't know. I wonder if we've always had a sense that somehow people don't appreciate us or don't understand us, or maybe like the French in particular. I think there is an impression in the United States that the French don't like Americans, but I've had exactly the opposite experience in France.
Every American traveler I talk to, whether it's a tour member or an American I meet here in Paris or a client of mine, everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of them will say the same thing. There is this myth that's going around the United States that the French hate Americans. Parisians hate Americans. I find out very often that they heard it from someone in the United States who actually had not traveled to France. It's just hearsay. Oh, they're so arrogant and they hate Americans. 99% of American travelers who come to Paris and France leave absolutely delighted, completely blown away by the fact that French people and the tough cookie Parisians have been very friendly, very helpful. And this is how you debunk stereotypes. When I toured for Rick and when I do my own tours, it's one of the first topics I discuss. I just say, put that behind you. Don't be afraid. And you teach people a few little codes or a few little tricks to open the doors, right? To do the right thing. So people immediately feel like helping them. And that's part of your job as a teacher. That's part of your job as a tour guide. And once they know that, once they know why French people can be offended by some things Americans do, once they understand what's behind it, then no problem at all. I mean, I don't know if some of the travelers I toured with are watching right now, but everybody was just raving about the welcome they got and how helpful French people were. So I think Americans should not listen to what people say, to the stereotypes, and they should come out when they can. I realize it's not possible right now. When they can, they should come out and check us out, and they will see that it will be a great experience. It will be, it really will be.
Well, and I think that my feeling about the French is that maybe part of the competition between Americans and French and this impression that we have has something to do with how similar American and French cultures are, because of all the countries I tour and I work in, I would say France 100% is the most similar to the United States.
Yeah, so it's similar in that, I agree. It's similar in that we're all very culture proud and very conscious of being, there's a bit of an exceptionalism there. Americans, their history is based on that. The French are the same. We're all very culture proud. So of course, sometimes when two people who are really culture proud meet, there's going to be a collision and some misunderstandings, you know. But overall, we have more things in common than things we don't have in common, I think. We have a common history, and it's always fun as you tour Paris or other areas in France to show American visitors, you know, how many Americans came here, how they felt at home. Good old Benjamin Franklin loved it here so much. He lived here for years, leading the good life in many ways. People are shocked to find out how good of a life he had here sometimes. He just had a great time here. And there's a reason for that. And so we have all these common bonds. We have these bonds. And I don't think that's going to disappear. Travel is the best way. I feel like I'm talking like Rick now. Whoever said, I think it was Mark Twain who said, about prejudice, traveling is a paraphrase here, but if you want to lose your prejudices, just go and travel and see people up close, see their culture, spend time with them. You will come back with a totally different mindset. And that applies to any country in the world, mind you, not just France or the United States. So I think there have been a lot of cultural misunderstandings. Yes. And I used to work as a cross-cultural trainer in Seattle. I worked with companies who did business with France. That was my first business there. And we would have workshops where I would tell them, this is what's going to happen in that business meeting. And this is why you're going to be shocked. And then I would, explain, what is that? What is it?
A bird just came into my house, a blue jay. Luca!
Help!
Luca!
Help!
There's a blue jay in the house We keep our doors open because it's so hot. Sorry.
Okay. Sarah, I had the same thing happen to me 2 weeks ago with a sparrow. She misjudged when she wanted to land above my window on the rooftop, and she came in and crashed on the wooden floor, and I almost had a heart attack. So I totally get that.
Oh my gosh. Luca, you need to, the birds in the playroom, please come and take care of it.
Come on, boys, come help your mother.
Well, anyway, what I wanted to say, actually, what was on my mind is that, I always do a talk with my groups when we get to Paris, because it is such a thing that people believe that the French are going to be rude. The French don't like Americans. The French are going to try and trick you or be, all these different things. And
they're horrible. They're
horrible. Yes.
Horrible.
And I learned very, very early on in my tour guiding career. My first Paris tour I did in the year 2000. And I went, and I remember sitting in the breakfast room, and the woman who did the breakfast for us got so upset because she said, your group is so rude. And I'm like, what? My group is not rude. Your group never greets me in the morning. And I went, oh, and she was so upset because we didn't look her in the eye and say, bonjour, madame. And I learned in that moment how incredibly important that is culturally in France. And that's just not an American ethic. I mean, no. I always give the example that I go into Target and I hope I don't have to make eye contact with anybody. I go and I get my shampoo and my cereal and my socks and underwear, and I go up to the counter and I put them on the thing and I put in my debit card and I try to leave without speaking to anybody. Because that, I don't know why we do that. That's just the way we are.
Maybe it's a cultural thing. It shocked I was going to be rude. It shocked the mayor out of me when I was in Seattle to see people do that, because to me it was like, how can they do that and get away with it? I'd be behind somebody at a Starbucks and the woman would walk up to the barista and say, single tall, not fat cappuccino with extra cream. And the barista would say, okay, take the order, take the money. And I was like, not hello, not please, not thank you. What is wrong with this lady? I was shocked. Shocked. And those are really different cultural, they're cultural differences. They really are. The scene you described at the hotel in Paris happened to me at one of our hotels, Rick Steve hotels in the 7th. I had given the talk. I had explained the importance of bonjour to everybody you meet before you ask a question or request something. 2 days after we arrived, this lady pulls me aside in the kitchen and she says, some of your people are really rude. I said, okay, there will be okay, I'll talk to them. They don't mean anything by it. And so on the walk to the metro in my headset, I was like, I won't name names, but some of you are not saying bonjour and it's not going well with the kitchen, ladies. We want to make sure our coffee is still stirred hot at the end of the week. We may want to consider doing that. And they were laughing and it was all good. So yeah, that totally applies still.
Well, and I had exactly the opposite experience last summer. I was with my family groups, and when we got onto the bus on the way to our hotel in the 7th, I got on the mic and I explained, here's the bonjour. This is the greeting is so important, and I can't express to you how important it is. And I taught everybody how to say it. And I said, your main goal tomorrow is to wake up, go down to the breakfast room, make eye contact with the women who work in the breakfast room and say, bonjour, madame, and say it sing-songy, bonjour, madame. And that is your goal. That is your number one assignment. And anytime you walk into a shop, you need to greet people, bonjour, madame, bonjour, monsieur, whatever you want to do, you have to greet. And so I did this and I really pounded it into them. I felt like I was being bossy mommy. But at the end of the stay, the breakfast woman came up to me literally crying. And she said to me, I am so grateful because I don't think I've ever had a group of travelers so respectful of me.
Good for you. Well, that's the thing.
But at the end of the day, that's what it is. And this is not just French culture, but it's Italian culture as well. The bottom line, I always tell the bottom line on everything in Europe is The Godfather. What is The Godfather about? What is that movie about? Tell me. What's the one word?
Respect.
Yes. Respect is the number one word. And I think that's pan-European, that if you can show your respect, that's the thing.
I'm going to send you, after this call, I will send you a photo I took in Nantes, a beautiful city in Western France, just like last week. It was posted on the door. I believe it was a restaurant, and it's a little spiel to French people, not to tourists, about why it's important to say bonjour when you arrive, and the word respect is written at the bottom. So I'm going to send you that photo. It's all about respect. And remember, the French fought a revolution. Well, one of many, but that's the one that everybody knows. The French fought a revolution so that social classes, privileges would be abolished. And that stands really strongly in the French psyche and the French mind. If you go inside a store, inside a Starbucks, or here in a patisserie, whatever, and you don't greet the person, that means you don't think they're your equal. That means you're not showing proper respect. And the person will set you straight right away. My ex-husband, who is French, very Americanized, but French, got caught in Paris in a boulangerie at the Bastille with me once. We were lost. He went in the boulangerie. There's a long line of people. He steps in and he's very charming. And he says, "Excusez-moi, madame, excuse me, lady. Where is ta-ta-ta?" He asks his question. She looks at him behind the counter, pause, and she says, "Bonjour, monsieur." And that's called being schooled. I never saw my husband. Yes, I never saw my husband blush before, and he blushed. The whole line of people in the boulangerie waiting stopped talking and looked at us in our homeland. So if our friends are watching, it doesn't just happen to you. It applies to everybody, including French people. Respect. And the greeting is the first step.
That's so funny you say that, because for me, that is the worst French burn. And I've gotten that before too, when I was just in a hurry and I forgot my manners. And yeah, I was at Monoprix or something like that, just buying like some cheese, and I totally forgot. And the person at the counter just didn't check my stuff out and looked at me and went, "Bonjour, madame," in a really pointed way. And it's just like, oh, I feel like shrinking.
Yeah, it's all about, it happens to French people. Now, you know, it happens to all French people too.
Well, it's nice to know it's not just tourists who forget.
And see, and that's why I share this story always with clients and tour members, because I don't want them to think it's because the French hate Americans. I share this story to tell them it happens with French people as well. It's not you, you see, it's what you did. There's a big difference.
Yeah, well, and I think there's no different. And the thing is that I think that we also could use that here. I mean, I think it would be great if we trained our kids to let older people take their seat on the bus. If we were trained to say good day to people that we greet, it's it's nice. I mean, it's kind
of nice. I think it's nice to greet people. For 23 years in the United States, I did it with every single person I met in the stores. And very often they would say, "You're so polite." And to me, it was the basics, right? And then, "You're so polite."
I would say, I'm looking at the comments here. First of all, I just want to say I used Florida just as an example. I'm not saying all Floridians don't wear masks. I want to point that out. And also, a few people are pointing out in the comments that Southerners already do this thing. And I would say that's really true. Yeah, my sister lives in Texas, and I've noted how impeccable the pleasantries are there. So
yes, I lived in the South, and I can totally confirm that. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I love the South. It's very true. Their manners are pretty different down there. And also, whenever I've tackled this topic with students, they have always been prompt at pointing out that things used to be different in the United States, apparently decades ago. I've had people readers tell me, when I was growing up, this is what we were expecting to do as kids. So this is something that maybe got diluted and is not the case now. But it's always hard when you generalize, but you have to generalize. Otherwise, the conversation is not interesting, because it's about people's examples. But at the same time, when you generalize, necessarily you're going to be unfair, because it's a generalization.
Well, and I have to wonder, I think part of the conversation I always have with my groups about culture in France with the bonjour effect and all of that is that there's also in the French culture a very stubborn streak about equality, and how doing that bonjour, that simple thing, especially like if you're in the bathroom and the attendant washing the toilets, they are worthy of your respect. And it's because they're the same as you. And I think that that's one of the key cultural elements that I've really picked up on in France, is that really staunch feeling that all people have equality in a sense and a right to respect.
Yeah, and whether it's true or not with all French citizens, I just showed that on the live walk yesterday. Above each French official building and schools in particular, the French motto is clearly written above the door: Liberté, liberty; égalité, equality; liberté, égalité, solidarité. What's the last one? Liberté, égalité. Yeah, I was like, I'm blogging. So I was focusing on the middle one. So it's égalité is the middle one. It's the first one you see when you come in. So it's really important. It's really important. So, you know, cultural differences make the world go round. But as tour guides, as teachers, we have to give people the codes to that culture so they can unlock that culture. And then they feel more comfortable, even if they don't speak the language. Just by learning 5 to 10 expressions, that'll open all the doors. That's all you need. 5 to 10 expressions.
Yeah, and as a tour guide, I would say working in France has been one of my most rewarding experiences, because I do think that so many Americans feel either incredibly intimidated by French culture, or they feel like it's inaccessible in some way. And it's so easy. It really is. It's just, it boils down to just manners. I mean, it really is such a simple thing. So yeah, for me, I've loved watching the people in my group love France. People who didn't expect to love France, they love it once they understand.
Good. Well done, Sarah. Well done.
Well, I think that it's, and I'm sure
converting.
You get the same reaction too, though. I mean, I think once you give the understanding and you teach them how to swim in that ecosystem, it's easy.
There are so many stereotypes about French culture. We could talk for an hour about stereotypes about French women, you know, the elegance of French women. And I think a lot of American women sometimes feel inadequate. They feel worried before going to France. Like, what am I going to wear? Should I wear a scarf? And one of the things I've always enjoyed doing on my blog and in social media is to debunk a few stereotypes. And if I'm on a tour in the street somewhere and I see a couple of people who are not looking, you know, I'll say, okay, so see, not everybody looks like a model in the 16th arrondissement in Paris. And they'll say, oh, but they're not French. They're probably tourists. So we'll get closer and we'll hear them speak French. And I'll say, see, they're speaking French. So it's not like everybody is out of vogue. You know, it's not like everybody looks like all French women are thin and you know, and their hair is just so. Stereotypes are harmful because they set expectations and then people lose their self-confidence. That's not good.
I would say, though, that my observation of French women is that the difference between them and us is that French women feel confident and beautiful at any age. And I think in the US, we're so convinced that once we pass 40 that we're not beautiful anymore. And I just admire that confidence. Like a French woman could be wearing a potato sack and walking down the street and I'd be like, wow.
I see where that comes from, and I can agree with it to some extent. A lot of French women are confident and will wear colorful. The women in their 60s will wear colorful things and really different, like have a style of their own. But when people say that to me, I always say, then why is it that so many women will go see a cosmetic surgeon? Why is it that so many women are on diets pretty much for all their lives? Why is it that they smoke? So because they think they would not put on weight if they're that self-confident, you know? So there's a little bit of everything.
Could be. So we're almost out of time, but one topic on that same
too bad.
Thread,
that was fun.
I know it goes by too fast. On the same thread, do you wear a bikini at the beach?
I haven't worn a beach. I don't really go to the beach, to be honest. So if I went in my closet, which I have to do before I go on my trip to southern France on Sunday, if I dug out some of my old bathing suits, I'm pretty sure 1 is a bikini and 4 are one-piece suits. Pretty much colorful ones because I love color. That's another stereotype I don't follow in Paris. I don't dress just in black and navy blue. I like colors and patterns, you can see.
Yeah.
So I know you like bikinis. I wish I were as brave as you are. That's showing self-confidence. See, I'm a French woman and I'm not always confident enough. That just debunked your theory.
Oh,
because
you
I'm
did.
not
I know. It's
confident.
yeah,
I
but
don't wear a lot of bikinis.
I'm happy to be debunked, though, because I want to give people accurate information. My observation has been specifically mostly in Italy. In Italy, I mean, you would never see a one-piece bathing suit anywhere there, but
Oh,
that's
wow.
why I wanted to ask you. I don't know what the custom in France is necessarily.
Well, in France, you used to see a lot of topless, the topless thing was big, I would say in the 80s, early 90s. You see a lot less of it now. And I think you see a little bit of everything. I will see that when I go to southern France, I'm going to Biarritz at some point. So I'll go to the beach, I'll see people. I think you see a lot of everything. There are some really nice looking, sexy looking one-piece bathing suits. And then some bikinis, maybe some topless ladies still. So I'll let you know. I will report back at the end of my travels. I will let you know what the stats are.
That sounds good. And actually that brings me to a really interesting topic that is, I think, an American myth as well, is people think that women all over Europe bathe topless, and they really don't. I remember when I was a backpacking student, yeah, that was super common. I did it myself, in France and in Italy. I mean, that was pretty common, but that's in the past.
That's in the past, and trends change. There's more consciousness now of the sun damage and all that, I think in France as well. And no, you don't see topless beaches as much as you used to, for sure. So things change, trends change, but I will definitely report back, because now I'm kind of curious. I'm going to look extra hard when I go to Biarritz and other beaches to see what the trend is.
Well, and for me, I always feel like when I go to a foreign country, I don't mind kind of splashing out and wearing a bikini and just sort of doing whatever I want, because
of course nobody knows you
again, nobody knows me.
Where somebody could spot you. Wait, I think it's Adventures with Sarah. Click, 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 click.
Okay. And I'm curious, has that ever happened to you? Have you had your fans approach you in Paris?
Yes, not since I've been here. No, actually, it happened to me in Seattle. When I lived in Seattle still the last 3 years, I was approached, I'd say about 4 or 5 times, very often at airports when I was traveling around, because my bags, I post photos of my favorite travel bags a lot. And I think people recognize the bags before they see me. So it's happened 3 times in an airport and twice at the fancy Bellevue Square Mall in Bellevue, that people very kindly approached me. Some of them are patrons now, by the way. They are club members. And they approached me and they said, "Are you Veronique?" And I would say, "Yes." And they would say, "Oh, I know who you are." So yeah, it's open. Maybe it's happened 5 times in my whole entire life. Nothing to brag about, but it was nice. It makes you feel good.
It does. And, I actually have never been approached in Seattle. I've never had anybody, except for up at like Rick Steves events, but never in Seattle. But I have been approached.
But in Europe?
In Europe, especially in Venice and Florence, I've been approached a lot. And actually in Paris, it was very funny one day. This is a great story. I don't think I've told anybody this one. It's so funny. I was with a family group. I was standing in front of Notre Dame doing my Notre Dame talk, and this woman kept circling the group and circling the group and circling the group. And finally, she got up the courage to come up and say, "Are you Adventures with Sarah?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And I felt a little like it's exciting.
Yeah, it's a little weird too.
Yeah. Well, and I was with my group and I'm like, "Yes, I am." And she's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan, blah, blah, blah." And she was really super gracious and sweet. But here's the funny thing. It was a family group. So they're a bunch of teenagers. And the teenagers had no idea that I have a social media following. So the teenagers are all like, "What is going on?" My adopted daughter, Skyla Sorensen, she said to the kids, "Oh, Sarah, she's internet famous, but for old people."
Sweet. They are lovely, aren't they?
Yeah, so that's going to be on my tombstone. She was internet famous, but for old people.
Old people. Yeah, well, I'm definitely going up there myself. So I doubt I have a lot of, teenagers or even millennials following me. I do have a few lately, which makes me feel good. But, it's nice. It's flattering. It's a little strange, especially if you are with other people and you're working. On the bus, occasionally, on the tours, there would be somebody walk up to me and say, "I found you Instagram. Because I never mentioned the blog or anything. I found you on Instagram. And I would say, oh, great. I'd say, keep it hush hush. Let's not talk about this. And sure enough, before the end of the tour, people would be logged in on Instagram and see it. But that's nice. It makes you feel good. Yeah, I'm proud of what I do, and I'm sure you're proud of what you do. So there's nothing shameful about it. So,
Okay, so you guys, everybody watching, we're giving you all permission. If you see me or Vero on the streets, you are welcome to come up and say hello. We love to meet you, and we don't bite, at least.
No,
not unless we're given a reason.
No, we don't bite. So, and it's always nice. It really is. So I can't wait for people to start traveling again, and maybe we'll have some meetups in Paris, maybe once a week during peak tourist season in the fall. Maybe I'll do those little meetups where the patrons can join us and we can sit around and chat and catch up. That would be fun to do. It's nice to see people face to face,
I've done that before, actually, in Venice. I've met up with people who follow me for aperitivo, and it's really fun. I was surprised how many people showed up, actually. I thought nobody would show up, but actually we had a bit of a crowd, which was really fun. So.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I'll continue doing that. I want to do that. I think that'll be worth doing. It'll be definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, my gosh, Vera, we're going to have to do this again because this went by way too fast, and there's so much more.
Well, call me anytime. Maybe call me while I'm on the road because I'll be traveling around France. Maybe I can show you a sneak peek at one of the places I'm in.
Yeah, actually, if you want to do a little walking tour for us one day, that would be fantastic. I'd love to have you back.
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. We could do a little walking tour. And if I can get on top of my tech issues when I do those once in a while, I'm not a techie like you are. So,
well, I think there's a lot of exchange we could do. And of course, the other thing that pops into my mind is maybe you and I should cook up a little Adventures with Sarah and French Girl tour of Paris. That would be really fun to do.
That would be, we could do a fun adventure in the outskirts of Paris, like an adventure. I'm thinking about doing something combining hiking and exploring, like in eastern section of Paris, because those are areas you really want to see on foot or on a bike. So I'm thinking I could do that eventually. That would be fun. And then in the southwestern France, eventually, that will be my first attempt at planning my own small group tour.
Fantastic.
It'll be fun. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And if you guys out there are interested in following Veronique, where can they find you? My followers who don't know you already.
So the blog is FrenchGirlInSeattle.com, though it says French Girl in Seattle Takes France. I had changed that when I came back, but it's FrenchGirlInSeattle.com. There's information about my French classes on there and all the places where you can find me. And I post every day on Facebook and Instagram under France with Vero. And the YouTube channel has a ton of videos of tours, live stream tours where I take you around Paris and France. So if you want to travel in France vicariously or virtually, YouTube would be a good place to start.
All right. And if you guys want to support her, you can support her through Patreon. And I have definitely now been inspired to try and figure that out for myself. It sounds like a good.
You should, Sarah. You should. Option. Yeah, it's a good program.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Vera. We'll definitely have you on again. And to everybody else out there, thank you for joining us today for Coffee Chat. Monday Coffee Chat is always my favorite event of the week. The rest of this week, we're going to be doing cooking. La Cucina Quarantena is going French this week. And then on Friday, please join us for Lunch and Learn. And this week, we're going to be joined by friends of Veronique and I, which are Nina Sefuzati and Daniela Waddell, are going to take us on a walking tour of Avignon. So join us then for your virtual French vacation this week.
I'll watch it. I'll be there.
Sounds good. Merci. Thank you so much.
Merci. Au revoir. Au revoir. Au revoir. À bientôt.